Hi, this is Roger Green, host of the SurfingMASH Tsunami podcast. This week, we were offering 5 conversations from episode 18. Our discussion with Society for Sober Liver's founder and visionary Jenn Jones and principal strategic advisor Beth Lehman, talking about HOPE, their new support program for people who have harmed their bodies through alcohol use disorder, or AUD, either active, which means still consuming alcohol, or in remission, which means sober, at least at this time. By the way, HOPE stands for Healing Others with Peers and Education. This conversation reintroduces us to Jenn Jones, who we met on Season 4, Conversation 50.6, and introduces us to Beth Lehman. It begins our discussion of their new support program, HOPE, for people who have harmed their livers through current AUD or AUD in remission. As the conversation starts, we meet Beth, who discusses her disease background and personal history, and adds one thing we might not know about her otherwise. After we meet Beth, I introduce the topic by discussing how the new nomenclature has broadened stakeholders' view of liver disease by incorporating alcohol into the vision of steatotic liver disease through ALD and the new designation, MetALD. From there, Jenn shares how sober livers came to be involved with the Fatty Liver Foundation and introduces the new support program, HOPE. As I said in the previous paragraph, HOPE stands for Healing Others with Peers and Education, and it's an organization that provides peer support for people living with alcohol use disorder, either current or in remission, while simultaneously advocating for people to understand the disease better, as Beth puts it. Some peers will be living with cirrhosis, while others will be post-transplant, and patients may have concomitant metabolic system issues. HOPE is an admirable and ambitious effort to provide support that does not otherwise exist today for people who need it badly. Personal stories that Jenn and Beth share are compelling, and their plans and goals invigorating. So just sit back, listen, learn, absorb. When you're done, check out our LinkedIn discussion group and check out and perhaps contribute to soberlivers.org to support HOPE. We have first-time guest Beth Lehman. Beth, how are you today?
Beth Lehman.
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much. How are you, Roger?
Where are you today, Beth, geographically?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Greetings to hot Atlanta. And since you've not been with us before, can you take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about your path to be here? Kind of what you do, what you've done, and how you get to where you are today. And then when you're done, I'll have one more question for you.
Okay. I was diagnosed with end-stage cirrhosis in 2019, and I actually went straight from a primary care physician up to a transplant hepatologist, and I do credit that PCP was saving my life. I was just in denial. I drank a lot. I knew I drank a lot, and I knew it would catch up with me. So during the transplant evaluation, they uncovered liver cancer as well. And at that time, I already had 5 tumors. So it was pretty advanced. And more than likely, I'd been walking around with it for about 2 years. During that evaluation, they also found tuberculosis and a few other things too. So I wasn't near as healthy as I thought I was. And then got my transplant in April of 2019. And when I woke up in ICU, I had the word that came to my mind as rebirth. And that is not a word that I would normally use in my conversation. So I took that as a sign. And by the great gift given to me by a male that was 43 years old in North Carolina, I now have this second chance. And since we know that alcohol-related liver disease, it's not an individual sport, right? Your family's involved. So I took a year to think about it. Do I really want to go public with my story? I am in Georgia in the Southeast, and I have some Baptist members in my family. So there's some looks on drinking that are not favorable. So I decided to go forward. And on April 19th of 2022, I went public with my story for the first time. 6 months later, I think that's when you saw me speak at the liver meeting in 2022. And she got to talking to me about this organization. And I'm like her, I really thought there was going to be some support out there. And there isn't for people with alcohol-related liver disease. You know, I was sick during COVID, so I kind of chopped it up to that. But in reality, there's nothing out there for people like us.
Before you were diagnosed, did you have a job or a career or things that you were working on and doing in your life when you weren't making yourself sick?
I did. I was a financial IT consultant. I graduated college in 96 when we all thought the world was going to end for the year 2000. So everything was kind of turned towards the computer industry then for consulting. And so that's where I was, based in Atlanta, but flying out every Monday, coming back every Thursday. I was with Ernst & Young, and the last 3 years with them, I was commuting to Los Angeles every week. So that got extremely old. I attribute that and priority airplane seating and things like that that to my drinking a lot, because when you're in LA by yourself, you're in a hotel room, you have a pretty healthy per diem, you're bored. I like to tell people that I spent a lot of money on therapy to realize that I drank because I was bored. And so I really, really think that that's because I didn't drink in high school or college. So I didn't consume until I started working. But then I switched to a career to IT consulting here in Atlanta. And then I was planning my wedding. My husband told me that I was working in the telecommunications industry. People were getting laid off all the time. So he said, go ahead and quit your job, but you're going to have to do some volunteer work when you're not working. So then I had no job, and all I was doing, it gave me a career for drinking is really what it did. Mm-hmm. Well, I quit work in 2010.
So that was 9 years of pounding it like that, huh?
Yep. My average was 3 to 4 bottles of wine a day. And, I only drink red wine. I didn't think I was going to get in trouble with that, right? For all you out there listening, red wine can get you in trouble just as much as a scotch on the rocks,
I'm casually guessing that that's also true of white wine and rosé.
I think you're onto something there, Roger.
With all that, now tell our audience one thing about you that they wouldn't know or necessarily suspect if you didn't tell them, please.
I'm an avid aviator, I guess. I used to fly before I was...
So now you fly, huh?
Yeah, and with, not medicated. I used to fly a lot. And then, of course, with diseases like this, you get grounded. So I am currently grounded, but my eyes are always towards the sky.
Can you get ungrounded at some point?
You have to not be on certain medications for about 10 years before the FAA will unground you. And I'm not on any medications that I can currently fly with, nor will I be for the rest of my life. So I am permanently grounded.
So you're at least death plus 10 away from being able to fly again, huh?
You got it right there. Yep.
So for those of us who are listening, in your next life, if you get on a plane and the pilot says, "Hi, my name is Beth," then you'll know that she managed to maintain sobriety unmedicated after her transition to the next lifetime. That's different.
And if that happens, come into the cockpit and say hello to me, please.
Let's roll into our conversation. Usually I ask our guests to start, but I want to start this a little bit. When Jenn was on, one of the times she's been on in the past, we wound up talking about nomenclature and the benefits of the nomenclature system. I think I've been pretty vocal since forever in saying that there were things about it that I wasn't so sure about and things about it I was sure about. And one of the things I was sure about is that creating a broader umbrella called SLD and bringing alcohol into the same tent as fatty liver. And then even beyond that, creating a disease called MetALD, which recognized the idea that here's a stunner. People with bad diets sometimes drink, or people who drink sometimes have really bad diets. I know we're all shocked. By the way, we do this as an audio, but you should see Jenn is laughing out loud and Beth has a astonished expression on her face, which is completely made up. At any rate, I thought that was really exciting. And frankly, I think I met Jenn at whichever, maybe it was last liver meeting last year.
Jenn Jones.
Yeah. That's where it was.
Around the whole idea of nomenclature and that we were all in the same party now. And shortly after that, Sober Livers and Fatty Liver Foundation joined up. Jenn's been with us a couple of times. But I'm really excited about this and what you're doing, because you don't have to have a drinking problem to know that drinking problems don't get spoken about frequently. And it's really hard to get support if you're not lucky enough to look under 19 rocks, one of which happens to have something under it. So going public like this with something that's large and bold is just so exciting, and I believe will help so many people. I'm thrilled that we're getting to do this. So with that, I'm going to step back and let you all talk about your program for a while. Whoever wants to go first, go first. I gave you a list of a couple things I'm hoping we get to cover, but all yours. Take it.
And I'll have to look at that list. But thanks, Roger. I'll start off and then I'll throw the ball over to Beth to talk about some of the important notes of our program. But we're starting out a program called HOPE, which stands for Healing Others with Peers and Education. And both of the end parts of that HOPE are very important. We are a peer support advocacy organization, and we are also advocating for people to understand their disease better, both on the physical and mental health side of things. So holistically, we want people to understand that even if they're not part of a multidisciplinary clinic per se, the importance of looking at all of these areas. The HOPE program itself is a no-cost peer support and education program that's dedicated to people with AUD or AUD remission, which stands for alcohol use disorder. And also, and that's a big and, also have have liver disease as a result of alcohol or have had a transplant as a result of alcohol. Now, you mentioned nomenclature, and as you can see, Roger, that lovely chart is right in the back of me right now that talks about the nomenclature. I live it, I breathe it, and I believe it's going to be a lot larger than what we originally forecasted. So anyone who has liver disease because of alcohol, and that includes people with metabolic dysfunction, are welcome in our community and at the table. So I'll let Beth talk about like what the program actually offers and what they have access to, and then we can go from there.
I've got a pretty big mouth. So once I decided to go public, I went public in a big way. And so I've talked to a lot of doctors, and peer support is one of the best ways to get somebody through an illness. Look at cancer. You always go and you talk to somebody that has had the same kind of cancer and things like that. But alcohol, let's look at that. Who are we that drink alcohol? In my head, it was the man on the park bench, laying there with a paper bag with a bottle inside. And that's the image that I got. I still say that the day I had to tell my parents I was sick because of my consumption rate was one of the worst days of my life. And as I've gone public, I've realized that there were more and more people that had this shame and this guilt. I had my first experience of going to somebody and having a conversation and going, oh, wow, me too. We want people to come to our organization and be surrounded by a group of like-minded people. I've done some recovery programs. I've done the 12 steps, and there's no group for people like us in those traditional recovery programs. They have a group for men, they have a group for women, LGBTQ, and all of this, but there's not a group for people that have harmed their bodies due to their consumption of alcohol. So we're here to fill that void.
And now, back to Roger.
I hope you've enjoyed this recording. If you have any questions or comments about the content of this conversation or the entire episode, please put them in the review section of the page from which you downloaded this conversation, or send an email to questions@surfingmash.com. Over this week, we will be posting a series of one-on-one conversations I had with some of our friends over the course of the EASL Congress, and then a wrap-up with Joran, Louise, and me later in the week. We will have other EASL conversations throughout the month. Until then, stay safe, surf on. We'll see you on the podcast. Bye-bye now.